Welcome to episode 18 of Fixing America with J-Mail. This episode is entitled The Malicious Destruction of American Bureaucratic Infrastructure. In this episode, we will discuss Trump's mass dismissals of inspector generals, assaults on independent oversight, and his use of DOGE to attempt unsuccessfully to dismantle our democracy as weapons against the citizens of this country to usurp our popular sovereignty. During Trump's first term in office, he fired, replaced, or removed 5 cabinet-level inspector generals: Glenn Fine of the DOD, Christy Grimm, HHM, Mitch Boehm of the DOT, Steve Linick of the DOS, and Sandra Bruce of the Education Department. He also threatened to fire Michael Horowitz of the DOJ. He also fired Michael K. Atkinson from an intelligence agency, not yet a cabinet level. These actions complied with the 30-day notice requirement to Congress, but failed to provide the statutory prerequisite reason for the dismissal. Most of these removals occurred in the spring of 2020. While Trump failed to provide Congress with adequate reasons for the dismissals had partisan, vindictive, substantive explanations that made them highly suspect. For example, Steve Linick was investigating Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, for misuse of staff in emergency arms sales. Michael Atkinson, intelligence community, was fired after he forwarded the Ukraine whistleblower complaint to Congress. Glenn Fine was fired for no substantive reason. Christy Grimm was fired after releasing a report of COVID-era hospital shortages. Mitch Boehm was fired while investigating Transportation Secretary Elaine Koh. Richard Delmore was removed from the PRAC oversight group of the COVID relief funds. Sandra Bruce was removed and then reinstated after congressional backlash, and Michael Horowitz's oversight in several cases was bypassed. After Trump's election to a second term of office, he did not waste any time in imposing restraints on bureaucratic oversight. On November the 12th, 2024, before his inauguration, Trump promised to destroy the federal bureaucracy with his announcement of the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, commonly known as DOGE. He appointed Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead that agency. I mentioned DOGE and Elon Musk because they played a vital role in Trump's plan to drastically reduce the size and composition of the federal bureaucracy in ways that were unlawful, unauthorized, and unethical. Removal of IGs and replacing them with Trump loyalists was critical to Trump's planned blitzkrieg destruction of the bureaucracy. Elon Musk was the richest man in the world at the time of Trump's election to his second term. He invested $277 million in the Trump's re-election campaign and actively campaigned for him. His successful multinational companies, Telsa, SpaceLink, Starlink, and X, a social media platform, are in heavily regulated businesses and industries with a global presence. He has no prior governmental service or public service record. His companies had existing contractual relationships with numerous federal agencies. Some had components that used extremely sensitive or classified information and data of the United States government. Musk, the individual, had no level of authority to see, use, or have access to classified government documents, data, or information. Neither he nor DOGE had authority to access, copy, or use citizens' personal information. Moving forward chronologically, on Friday night, January 24th, 2025, 4 days after taking office, Donald Trump fired 17 inspector generals without any prior notice by email, without the required 30-day notice to Congress providing meaningful reasons for their dismissal. The inspector generals fired by Trump on January 24th, 2025 are Christy Grimm, Phyllis Fong, Cardwell Richardson Jr., Mark Greenblatt, Robert Storch, Mike Ware, Ray Oliver Davis, Larry Turner, Michael J. Missel, Paul K. Martin, Sean O'Donnell, Sandra Bruce, Nicole Angarella, Luis Santos, Skyrubia, and 2 are unknown. Of the 15 cabinet-level executive departments, Trump fired the inspector generals in all but one department, Homeland Security. The Inspector General Act of 1978 gives the President authority to appoint an IG for all 15 cabinet-level departments without Senate confirmation. The Inspector General Reform Act of 2008 requires the President to notify Congress at least 30 days before removing an IG. Removal requires notification, which arguably implies consent or at least congressional right to block the removal. But Senate confirmation is not required to appoint cabinet-level IGs. At least the Inspector General Act requires the establishment IGs have an Inspector General, even if it does not require Senate approval. So, all 15 cabinet-level departments must have an IG. In September 2025, U.S. District Court Judge Anna Reyes ruled that the administration likely violated the law governing the removal process. She declined to reinstate them because it was likely that the president could remove them again upon compliance with the statutory notice requirements. That case did not resolve once and for all the broader issue concerning the scope of presidential removal power. What Trump has done is remove nonpartisan, merit-based inspector general leadership at his discretion and replace them with partisan, unqualified lackeys loyal to him and his agenda. That is clearly 180 degrees opposite to the substantive purpose and intent of both the Pendleton Act, the Inspector General Act, and the Civil Service Act. Therefore, wouldn't it be logical to interpret our law that a president cannot remove an inspector general for partisan political purposes without showing some other valid reason for the removal? It seems childish to have to also suggest that a candidate's campaign promises and or agenda can have no legal effect on the governance of our country unless and until such proposals have survived the arduous process of becoming law in accordance with our Constitution. Both the former and current Attorney Generals, Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, and Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, seem to believe they have authority to do whatever Trump says if it is directed towards the implementation of his agenda. If that were true, we would be able to impeach Trump for building a wall along our southern border because Mexico did not pay for it, as Trump promised. We should be able to impeach Trump for invading Iran in direct violation of his campaign promise not to engage the United States in Mideastern foreign wars, as he promised. We should be able to impeach Trump for imposing illegal, unconstitutional tariffs that the United States Supreme Court has ordered him to refund to the payors of those taxes, that is, the U.S. companies and citizens, not to the foreign countries, as he falsely promised would be paying them. Let's now focus on the sequence of events immediately following Trump's inauguration. On the first day in office, January 20th, 2025, Trump signed Executive Order 14171, which reinstated Executive Order 13957 from his first term in office, which Biden had rescinded. That order established the infamous Schedule F that reclassified certain civil service positions, increasing the president's control over them by removing their civil service protections and making them easier to remove. And on his first day in office, Executive Order 14158 officially established the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Those things were prerequisites to what happened on his fourth day in office, January 24, 2025. On that day, Trump signed the Friday Night Massacre, ordering the firing of at least 17 inspector generals, which included at least 10 cabinet-level departments. That sequence of events is important because it paved the way for Elon Musk to begin his destruction of the bureaucracy without the oversight of the inspector generals. That was of particular importance because Musk and his companies were deeply integrated into the United States federal government through a complex web of contracts, subsidies, and regulatory oversight. The removal of the inspector generals cleared the way for Musk's role in the president's plan to steal our democracy by weakening and destroying the very agencies that oversaw his empire of companies and paved the way for less interference in his business enterprises. Musk had business interests that conflicted with his participation in DOGE in each of the following departments: Department of Defense, Education, Commerce, Justice, State, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Transportation, Labor, Department of Agriculture, Veterans Administration, HUD, Interior, Energy, Treasury, EPA, GSA, NASA, and the SBA. For example, SpaceX had a $5.9 billion contract for Space Force missions and secured a $200 million AI contract with DoD. Tesla received $11.4 billion in regulatory approvals and subsidies for electric vehicles and energy storage from Energy. SpaceX and Tesla benefited from contracts and subsidies while under Commerce oversight of export controls in aerospace tech. Tesla and Neuralink were under corporate compliance enforcement regulations by the Department of Justice. Starlink provides satellite internet for disaster response, and SpaceX received funding from the Department of Homeland Security. Neuralink was under investigation for potential violations of Animal Welfare Act by sub-agencies of the Department of Agriculture. Tesla vehicles were subject to EPA emission standards and faced potential environmental impact assessments. NASA awarded SpaceX a $500 million contract for lunar missions and was in collaborations on space exploration projects. There are numerous other potential conflicts not mentioned in this list. In 2024 alone, federal and local governments provided at least $6.3 billion to Musk companies. This extensive network of business dealings and regulatory oversight underscores the significant role Musk plays in shaping federal policies and operations. It is not merely ironic that the Inspector Generals have been replaced in all but 3 of the 19 federal agencies that Musk had substantial ongoing business interests that presented either existing or potential conflicts of interest when he and DOGE began the destruction of the U.S. bureaucracy. The elimination of the Inspector General interference and the Doge mass firings, impounding of federal funds, and reorganization of the agencies gave Musk, Doge, and Trump a path of least resistance to completely eviscerate or weaken oversight of the Musk business empire. And the ravaging of our bureaucracy restored the spoil system that history proved fostered corruption and inefficiency. It is also noteworthy that Musk and Doge targeted agencies with data holdings and or data centers early in its activities, including, but not limited to, the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, Department of Commerce, including National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration Systems, the Department of Treasury, where Central Payments and the Bureau of Physical Service Systems is located, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Department of Education, which processes student loan and student data access, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Department of Defense, and the Social Security Administration. These agencies assembled and stored personal, financial, health, loan, tax, education, and personal identification data of citizens, and as well as sensitive business data. It is difficult to know how much data Musk and his team acquired during their ravages through our federal agencies. My bet is that Musk got more than his campaign contributions in worth from the data he gained access to and probably downloaded or otherwise stored for his business purposes. And it would be logical that Trump also gained similar access. History teaches us that such data and information is invaluable to autocrats and dictators, and more especially to wannabe autocrats and dictators. It is valuable not just to know what citizens are doing, but to control what they will do next. Extensive surveillance was used to ensure conformity in East Germany. Nazi Germany maintained census and identity records to help identify and persecute targeted individuals and groups. The more the state knows about its citizens, the easier it is to control, predict, and suppress them. Control over a person's means to livelihood is not to be underestimated. In many instances, it means a family will go hungry or without life-preserving health care. Using it as a means of coercion or compliance is morally, ethically, and legally wrong. Musk and the Doge team used the job elimination or firing process as punishment without just cause or empathy. They physically forced their way into offices, ousted the employees, and shut the offices down without thought of the consequences to the employees or the effects on the work the agency did. As would be expected, numerous lawsuits have resulted against the action taken by Musk and Doge. Courts have reversed many of the layoffs, but most of the litigation is pending without a clear resolution as to whether the president has the unilateral authority to reshape the federal bureaucracy. Neither has it been finally resolved if Trump had the unilateral authority to appoint Musk without Senate confirmation in violation of the Constitution's appointment clause. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you found it enjoyable and enlightening. Remember to like, leave a comment, start a chat, leave a note, or subscribe. See you next time. Stay calm and resist. J. Mel.